Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another special episode of Death, Taxes, and Sports Baseball Edition. I'm here with two very passionate sports gentlemen, Mr. Brett Geis and a good family member of ours, Willing Epting Jr. for Shakeback Media Group. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing? And thank you for coming on.
Doing great. Thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it.
No doubt, no doubt. Willie, how you doing, boss?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me on.
No doubt, no doubt. When I always think of Willie, I always think football, but I keep on forgetting you're also a baseball fan. So I'm glad that you posted. I was like, got to bring him on. Got to add a little bit more excitement to this conversation here.
Yes, indeed. Let's get it.
And what team? And remind me again of your baseball team. So
my team is the Oakland A's.
Okay, the Vegas A's. How are you feeling about that?
I'm having a love-hate relationship with it right now. And that's just with the Oakland A's in general, or the A's organization, the city of Oakland. I don't have enough time to get into all that, man. But let's just say it's Armageddon in sports because of what's about to take place.
Yeah. And one of the things is like, Brett, we've talked about on Twitter a little bit. It's like they're going from the sixth largest media market, or sixth or seventh, to the 40th. And it's like you just can't play the same type of success that the Vegas Knights have had, and to some extent the Raiders, to baseball when you're playing in a desert and it's 82 games in a season.
Yeah, I just think the main thing with the A's going from Oakland to Las Vegas is, like you're saying, you're going from the sixth biggest media market to the 40th best. Now, obviously, the Golden Knights have brought on a humongous fan base out here. Basically, they've been their baby since day one. Whereas with the A's, yes, 81 games in the desert. If they have a dome, that's a possibility. But at the same time, the A's are going to be relying a lot on the tourism out here, because a lot of people that move out here are, fans of other teams in bigger markets. They may embrace the A's when they play other teams and so on and so forth, but also a lot of them are having issues with the ownership right now, and rightfully so. A lot of them are questioning, John Fisher right now, and they're really not excited about the vote going forward, especially since they're going to be giving them about $380 million in tax money too.
Yeah, and Willie, think and all good facts, Brett, and Willie. Like, my thing is, it's like when you think about it, there's so many other places where they could have gone, right? Where you think about Nashville, you think about Charlotte has been up there. Montreal, I think, maybe would have been a good market. They even have talks about Salt Lake City. So it'll be definitely very interesting to see what happens with expansion. But sorry about your Oakland A's, man. Oakland is a very passionate fan base for sure.
Yeah, and they did the same thing with the Raiders. They gave Mark Davis, I think it was $500 million. And how when the A's do move to Vegas, it's going to have to be a dome. It can't be anything other than that in the desert. I think for the A's, with the fact that they're going to have a more modern venue as opposed to what they're playing in right now and have been playing since 1967, I want to say, I think it's going to allow the ownership group to really change their objectives in terms of their business strategy or their organizational strategy, and actually go out and try to sign some big players. I mean, if you look at some of the players that the A's have had in the last 5 years that are on other teams, Mark Canha, for example, he against the Phillies in the game today. I mean, he hit a home run that actually put the game out. Well, I wouldn't say out of reach, but he put the Mets up in that game, and they never looked back. There's all sorts of other players out there as well that came from Oakland that are doing very well on other teams. And here we are, we can barely draw, 1,500 fans to an arena that has been there since before I even was living out there. So it's the city of Oakland's fault that the Raiders are gone. It's the city of Oakland's fault that the Raiders are gone. It's the city of Oakland's fault that the A's are about to be gone, and it's the city of Oakland's fault that the Warriors are now in San Francisco.
I mean, those are all facts. I mean, it's just one of those things where sometimes politics kind of plays into sports, but we're a sports show. We don't want to get too political. Oakland is I've had, it's a tough thing. It really is. I mean, for speaking from a guy from Baltimore who has family who remember when the Colts left up in the middle of the night to literally go someplace else. Whenever a team, and then the people up here in Seattle, right where I live, I had a guy that was wearing a Kevin Durant jersey at the Yankees game, and I'm just like, man, you were ready for the Supersonics to come back. He's like, yeah. So it's tough when a team loses, but hey, it is what it is. But hey, I'm not, but we'll see what happens with the Vegas A's. Maybe they change the name, maybe not. I don't know. But so tonight we want to talk about a couple other things here, right? We're going to talk about a little bit of MLB rule changes, how that's been impacting the game. Definitely about 2 or 3 players who've been a little bit disappointed. Can't wait to talk about that cheater, Carlos Correa. Yes, I still think I'm still a hater. I do not like him, and I do not wish anything good for him in the game of baseball. Talk a little bit division races. Look, I'm still salty. I still feel how I feel. He's a cheater. Like, it is what it is. And then we're going to talk about some MLB prospects. So let's, definitely get right to this. And Brett, the first MLB pitching change, the thing for me is a pitch clock. And for those listeners who don't necessarily realize what the pitch clock is, essentially it restricts pitchers to 15 seconds to be able to throw a pitch if the bases are empty, 20 seconds if there's a runner on base. Hitters must be in the batter's box before the clock hits 8. If a pitcher does not throw a strike or throws a pitch in the required time, it's an automatic ball. Whereas if a batter does not get into the batter's box, it's a strike will be called. For a pitcher, the penalty is enforced if he has not begun his pitching by the time the clock has expired. High level, Brett, what are some of your thoughts? Because I definitely think it's definitely messed up the rhythm of some of the pitchers.
The pitch clock has been very interesting addition to the MLB, and I think it's mainly been a good thing. The MLB has been researching this for quite some time. They've been having issues with a lot of dead time going on within the games and losing a lot of fan interest. That's why the attendance has been steadily declining over time. But with the pitch clock change, it definitely has shown that some hitters and pitchers can adjust, some can't. Guys like Kenley Jansen are having a hard time. Guys that, say that they don't rush their craft. Whereas I think with the pitch clock, and it's come down from the average time of the game last year was 3 hours and 6 minutes. Okay, the games now have gone down to 2 hours and 39 minutes. So that's showing that a lot of the dead period, like, Nomar Garciaparra getting out of the box every single pitch, adjusting his batting gloves, constant pitching changes. It's also helping pitchers and hitters develop a newer skill set as well that's more mental and more rhythm based. And, a lot of these prospects coming up from the minors are used to it because they start implementing them there. But I think it's definitely been a positive change for Major League Baseball, and also Kenley Jansen had mentioned that, pitchers are going to start getting more hurt, because they're rushing them. I don't necessarily agree with that because as of May 22nd this year, the pitchers on the injured list have been 72 pitchers in the major leagues that have been put on the injured list. That's up from only 69 on the same date last season. And also, on top of that, the days spent on the injured list have gone down from 1,138 days to 1,132. So I don't necessarily agree with him on that one. But I do believe that it has opened up a whole new element to this game. And also the attendance has increased as well. So fans are getting more interested. So I think it's a positive thing for the game.
Hey, good stuff. Willie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think for the game to be shorter, it actually brings more interest back to the game for the younger crowd, especially when you have not during the summer months, but that time between opening day and then when school gets out, and then when school gets back in August, and you have the playoff chase. It's definitely going to make a difference there. I actually was on a show on last night, Tribune South, one 108 Stitches of Baseball, and that's with Scott Morganroth and Motor City Mad Mouth. And we were talking to Warren Brewster, a World Series winning pitcher from the 1980 Philadelphia Phillies. And I asked him that very same question. And he said basically that for him, it wouldn't have mattered to him because he was a get the ball, get the sign and go guy kind of guy. And that obviously is what has been missing when you talk about Nomar Garciaparra, Brett. I just closed my eyes for a second and envisioned him stepping out of the box, doing his gloves, doing his helmet, and then doing this thing with the feet inside the box. And those things, you guys, I mean, when you have enough batters doing that over a particular set of 9 innings or more, that stuff adds up. And even with the pitchers who like to continue to try to throw over the first base, you only get 1 now. You may get 2. And when a pitcher is when there is a runner on a base, they actually get 25 seconds instead of 15. That is all great. And also, you know, what it does to me is, or for me is, it will keep people more engaged because the action is flowing a lot better.
Facts. And, you know, it's crazy because when I was literally at the game, there was someone that went to the bathroom and one of their buddies was like, bro, you better hurry up because it's probably going to be 3 innings that pass.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool. The game started at 6:45. It was already at the 8th inning. And I don't know why I remember this vividly. The clock time is at 8:21. It was in the 8th inning. And I'm like, this is great. The speed of the game, Brett. These games, especially when it gets into the summertime, I love baseball, but the speed of the game definitely has to get up. But I want to toss it to you about these base sizes just to try to get this time going here. What I thought was an interesting one was they making them 18 inches versus the previous 15 inches, as well as part of an effort to be able to worsen the injuries. Didn't really think about that. I completely forgot that they opened the bases or they widened the bases a little bit. What are your thoughts?
I definitely agree with the move. It's definitely, as a former baseball player, you know, it makes a whole lot of sense, especially to prevent these guys from stepping on each other's ankles, from colliding, from all that stuff, so they can feel a lot safer when they're running down the baseline. Also, it's also helped with stolen bases as well. You know, it is about 3-inch difference, which is not huge, but in terms of bases and baseball, it is a big difference, especially when you get a good jump. And they did the bases to coincide with the pitch clock and the pickoff attempts at first as well. And stolen bases have just gone up, and a lot of safer plays have been happening. So it's definitely been a huge positive for baseball.
Awesome. Willie, your thoughts?
100%. And I love what the Arizona Diamondbacks are doing. I think they have a total of I didn't see how many stolen bases they got today, but coming into today's play, they had like 74 stolen bases, which leads the majors. I want to give a name to you guys, and his name is Ricky Henderson. That dude stole 140 bags one year. One year. And you were having combined teams in one league or the other that didn't have that many. So for me, it's exciting to see. And as a black man who baseball is my favorite sport, it was the first sport I fell in love with. It's the sport that I played the best. I think these rule changes add a little bit more of a need for more athleticism. Not to say that baseball does not require athleticism, because we all know that it does. But I feel like it brings an added dimension of athleticism to the sport, because, man, swiping bags or putting the ball in play and playing small ball, those are all great things, man, that people that really love the sport of baseball actually enjoy seeing. You know, we don't really care for it. I'm speaking for me, and I'm going to speak for some other people that I know, but we don't really care for, you know, home run after home run after home run. You know, we don't really care for that. So when you have that kind of action going on, man, again, it keeps the fans engaged, and it actually makes these games go a little bit shorter. And you're right, Brett, when you talk about how one rule piggybacks off the other, that's exactly true, because now what we're seeing is, unlike it was during the performance enhancing drug era, where it was bash, bash, bash for offense, now you have these stolen bases, you have no more shift, which I'm sure we're going to get into as well, and all those things that allow you to, or that will make you become true runs batted in.
Facts.
Yeah.
And you think of, and shout out to the Oakland A's. Hopefully I don't butcher his name. Esteury Ruiz. The man has 28 stolen bases. I
Yep.
mean, that man is. I got on in several of my fantasy leagues. That man is just straight box office. It's going to be very exciting. I think the stolen bases definitely add a lot to it. But just like you talked to it, William, I'm going to throw this to you because I know you probably want to talk about the shift rule here. The shift rule, so people who don't realize, so the teams will now be required to have a minimum of 4 infield players lined with both feet completely in front of the outer boundary of the infield dirt, and may only have 2 infield players on either side of the second base. I really want to get your thoughts on this, Willie, and then I'll throw it to you as far as what are your thoughts on the shift, because I think it has definitely impacted some of the batters.
Yeah, I mean, I hated the shift. And it's not because of the shift itself. It was because you had these professional hitters that could not put the ball in play to the other side. For whatever reason, they could not do it. And because they couldn't do it, it's my firm belief that it really did bring down the integrity of the game, for the lack of a better phrase. Now, they're getting smarter with this, because in the game I saw today, was watching between the Mets and the Phillies. They had Frankie Lindor, shortstop for the Mets, like 15% angled from the right side of the second base to his right, and then they had the second baseman that was closer to the bag, but they were still all 4 infielders on that dirt, and so they're getting smarter with it. But I'm glad to see it. I can tell you one player who I know is as happy as a clam to see it, and that's Corey Seager. Corey Seager from the Texas Rangers, man, had 26 hits robbed from him last year because of the shift.
I mean, I like the shift personally, Brett. I mean, like, we all play baseball, and I remember my JV coach, we literally would spend at least 2 hours like a week trying to hit on the opposite side of the field. So, I mean, if you're a professional, but I get it though. I mean, it's good for baseball to an extent, but I didn't really have an issue. What is it? It's a strategy. I mean, it's a strategy move, but hey, it is what it is. But what are your thoughts, Brett?
The shift ban has been quite interesting to me. It's definitely made a difference with certain hitters like Corey Seager, Joey Gallo, and Anthony Rizzo is also having a really great year. And these power hitters that are just dead pull hitters, they're finding more holes up the middle or to their pull side. The MLB batting average last year was 243 league average. It has now gone up to 248. So that might be the slight difference making as well. And also the slugging percentage has gone up from 395 to 410. So there are probably slight differences with certain players. Maybe not all of the players who are what you call professional hitters who can hit all over the field. That might make a little bit of a difference. But to touch on Willie's point, teams are trying to find a way to circumvent the shift. That's for sure. I've seen the Red Sox do it. I've seen the Mets do it. And teams are trying to always get a strategy to work around it. I don't mind the shift, basically because, like you said, it is a strategy, and hitters should figure out how to hit the ball the opposite way. That's my personal opinion. But it's made a slight difference.
Thoughts, Willie? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, one other thing behind that, Brett, and the thing with the shift for me is that I think it made the product worse. And in this age of exit velocity and launch angles and all that stuff, that particular rule was not going to be conducive to what they were putting in place with these advanced stats.
Right.
Because now, when you have the shift, all of the other stuff goes down, and that obviously was geared towards the long ball or exciting extra base hits or what have you. And I don't think baseball, Major League Baseball for that matter, wanted to wait the amount of time that it probably would have taken for batters to become reaccustomed to the way we used to hit the ball back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also agree with your point from earlier about the base stealing and more strategy on the base paths. You know, that all adds up with the shift as well. You know, when you have this all intertwined and connected, it creates a whole lot of chaos on the base paths. You know, and that's what makes baseball fun. You know, baseball is trying to go back to the game that was many years ago where it had the 2.5 hour games, you know, up until about the late 80s, 90s, the game was more at a brisk pace and also had more running as well. And then obviously once steroid era came and more modern baseball, you know, it was chicks dig the long ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people are going to try to keep hitting home runs, but now, you know, now you have to get a little bit more creative with your plays and your strategy. And I think it's been great for baseball is trending up, in my opinion.
Yeah, facts. And gentlemen, when we talked about like the state of the MLB, I would say like when the president talks about the state of the union, the state of MLB is strong. The one thing when you look at from a demographic standpoint, the average fan is older. The average baseball fan is older than football and basketball. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
These rule changes, to your point, Willie, when it comes to like the excitement factor, I didn't even think about that. It adds that level of excitement. And if they want to be able to bring more people out to the games, and if they want to stay viable and they want to be able to attract better talent, baseball is a great sport, and I think that what they're doing is definitely the right thing. So when it comes to one of the other final rules here, the pitcher player eligibility for pitching, I thought this one was very interesting. So it specifies that a team may only put a position player in that pitcher if they're losing by 8 runs or more, or winning by 10 runs or more in the 9th or extra innings. Previously, a position player could be put on the pitcher's mound if the team was winning or losing by 6 or more runs. Brett, what are your thoughts on this one? Because it was kind of funny when they had Anthony Rizzo was still playing with the Cubs, and I remember they put that man in the game one time, and it was almost as if it was like a home run derby because he was just throwing lobs like it was like a softball, like a corporate softball event.
Honestly, with the position player pitching rule, I mean, it doesn't make that much of a difference to me. I always thought it was more for fun and games. Obviously, you know, when you've got Cody Clemens out there striking out Freddie Freeman, you know, and then you start thinking about his father, it's like, what? You know, and I mean, obviously a team shouldn't put a position player in the pitch if it's less than 8 runs or more. You know, there's no use. But honestly, that rule, I don't know how much of a difference it makes for me. Another rule, if you don't mind me hitting on this one, that really has improved it as well is the having the when you throw over to first base, you can only throw pickoff attempt 3 times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Facts. Willie, your thoughts?
Yeah, the position player going out there to the bump to throw to somebody is nothing but entertainment for me. I can't remember who it was. I think it was last week. It may have been Ronald Acuna Jr. from the Braves against whoever it was, and the pitcher threw like a 48-mile-an-hour la-la, and then another 51-mile-an-hour la-la, and then he fools them with a 74-mile-an-hour strikeout, and they just all laughed. So from that perspective, it's fun. It's funny. It gives us something to talk about. But really, in terms of how that rule is going to impact a certain game, has absolutely nothing to do with the results of the game. If it's going to be a close game or whatnot, nothing to do with it. And it's in terms of the pitching or throwing over to first base. What you're going to end up seeing, and what I have seen more of, is more snap throws from the catcher to first base, more so than the pitcher's trying to get a pick off.
Hey, that's definitely a good one. Brett, real quick, 30 seconds.
Yeah, because when pitchers are, you know, obviously you only have 3 attempts to throw over, and then on the 3rd attempt you have to get him, or else he gets second base. Definitely a lot more snap throws to first. I've seen Alvarez do it a lot. I've seen Elias Diaz from the Rockies. You know, that seems to be a strategy for these teams to kind of circumvent that rule as well, you know, to keep focus on that runner on first base. One thing that I really love about the rule, though, is especially is if teams are not doing snap throws to first, is that, like we've mentioned with the rules earlier, it's more stolen bases, more
Yeah.
havoc on the base paths.
Mhm.
All exciting stuff. These rules are definitely going to be. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how these rules continue to be able to be able to play. And I definitely think that want to kind of bring into the next segment when it comes to the 2 3 players we each have been disappointed, players that we are very surprised about are performing at a high level. We'll start off with a little bit of the disappointment. I mean, I really wanted to go Carlos Correa, but I feel like I have to kind of go with Alex Manoah on this one because he's just been absolutely horrendous. I mean, you think about it, the man has pitched 35 innings in the minors between 2019 and 2021 before getting called up. Over the past 2 seasons, the man had a 2.6 ERA with a 1.01 whip, despite making 27 of his 51 starts against the loaded AL East. He finished third in the AL Cy Young vote last year, even got a few AL MVP votes. Now, this year, his walk rate is 6.37 walks per 9 ratio. Brad, I know how you love these stats. And he's walked at least 4 batters in 7 of his 11 starts, and even had a brutal 7 walk, 3 strikeout game, and is entering this season with a brutal 5.53 ERA. Talking about a guy who has completely fallen off the face of the earth, Brett.
Yeah, I mean, Alek Manoah has been a huge disappointment this year. Other, media and fans alike were, he could take a leap. He had a pretty darn good season last year. So who knows how well he could have possibly done this season. But there was an indicator that possibly he would have control issues later on in his career. He did lead the league in hit by pitches and wild pitches last season. He, like you said, he only had 35 innings pitched in the minor leagues. He pitched in low A, I know, right before COVID, and then they sent him right to AAA in spring training, right into the bigs. So he got pretty successful pretty quick. So now that he's facing this, adversity in his second season, he's having a hard time, getting back on track. And the main reason for his issues right now is, and I touched on this on Twitter the other day, is that Alek Manoah is having a very hard time coming back ahead of the count when he falls behind. Now, he's throwing about 57%, first strike rates, which is about below average, but not horrendous. But when he gets behind in the count, say 1-0, 2-0, he can't come back from it, and teams are hitting. Now, his stuff hasn't really changed. Like, his miles per hour hasn't really gone down. His slider's effectiveness is about the same. But when hitters are putting themselves in these counts that are to their advantage, it's making his slider throw more over the middle and giving him gimme pitches, which is making them more effective. So he's been really struggling with the mental aspect of that part.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting. Willie, your thoughts, and then give your player.
Yeah, I can see that he may be affected by some of these rule changes as well. Because when you fall behind in the count like that, the last thing you want to do is feel like you're being sped up. And you could quite possibly be tipping your pitches at that point. And then that's never a good thing. So he's got good enough stuff. I think he just needs to figure out in his head and get some rhythm going, to where he can actually adjust more appropriately to the pace of the game that will satisfy his skill set. My player that I feel like is an enigma right now is Kyle Schwarber. I mean, my gosh, he does have 14 home runs, but he's batting I want to say he's in the 140s. And today against the Mets, he looked like I don't even know how to describe it. Now, Kyle Schwarber is notoriously known for being a slow starter, and June is his month. But I think he probably thought that today was still May 32nd or something, because I think he struck out 4 times against the Mets today. So, and I feel like he's going to get it together. But he's really struggling right now.
Yeah, Kyle Schwarber's always been.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, Kyle Schwarber's always been like one of those guys, Brett, where he'll give you like that's a good one, Will. I really like that one. He's like a guy that will give you like 35 to 40 home runs, but will bat like 230, 240, but has never really batted below the Mendoza line. I mean, that's just like a whole nother type of Kyle Schwarber. If he finishes with 140, we might as well call it the Kyle Schwarber line. I don't know, but your thought, Brett? And then
So Kyle Schwarber right now is kind of reminding me of Adam Dunn during his later years.
Mhm.
You know, he's hitting for a lot of power, but he's not hitting for average. And he's a 228 career hitter. You know, not something that scouts expected coming out of college because he had a pretty advanced bat. But they started to discover once he got to the majors that he did have a swing and miss issue. He is striking out about 30% of the time, which is pretty bad. But he is walking at the highest rate of his career, which is about 13, 14%. The problem with Kyle Schwarber is that he's your true 3 outcome guy right now. That's what it is. He'll hit 210, 215, hit 35, 40 home runs and have maybe a less than 2 wins above replacement, you know, just because of how he is in the field. He's just one of those guys, like I said, like Adam Dunn, where he'll just hit for a lot of pop and he won't hit for much of an average. He'll get on base. And that's kind of been the story with him since later in Chicago. He's definitely a player. I wanted to bring up one more player, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you definitely.
I think
Please go, your player.
Really struggling. It's Jose Abreu. I mean, the guy for the So, and that's one of the biggest issues with the Astros right now. The Astros are trying to rely on him at first base to bring in some power, but he's got 1 home run. He's hitting in the 160s, I believe. His StatCast numbers are terrible. I mean, you could kind of see it last year at his age 35 season. He only hit 15 home runs, and could be age-related what's going on. But it's definitely, the signing has looked terrible for the Astros with their replacement at first.
Yeah, and Willie, I feel like Jose Abreu, I feel like his numbers have been kind of in decline the last like 3 or 4 seasons, right? Where he's kind of had some slow starts. He might have a little bit of pop to the bat. So what I thought though, Willie, that when those damn cheating Astros got him, I'm just like, how did the richer keep getting richer? Now they have Jose Abreu. Now they're gonna. I'm just like, I mean, I don't know. Your thought on Jose Abreu with the cheaters?
Well, I want to look at it from another standpoint. There's a reason why the White Sox did not re-sign him. So obviously they knew something that everybody else in the world only thought. He has not been the same since he won the MVP a few years ago, and he's not going to be the same. I think that ballpark down in Houston is tailor-made for his skills because he can yank it, and that's one of the shorter parks in all of baseball. But at 36 years old, you don't get less strong. You just become, your vision and your hand-eye coordination slows down. Your bat speed slows down. So I think that's what we may be seeing with this kid in terms of all of that. But the Astros are still the Astros. And, you know, I understand, Jeff, I understand your hatred for the Astros. I mean, I've got a 21-year-long grudge against the New England Patriots. So it's all good.
Yeah, you know, listen, like the Astros though, like I hate them more than I hate the Red Sox. Like if I had to choose, like I would root for the Red Sox before I root for the Astros. Like that's how much I hate them. I will I think they're the worst franchise in sports history. I wish them nothing but just misery and just God, I can't stand them. But anyway, I think I've made my point. But kind of continue this thing going on here because I really want to get to some of the teams here. We'll do one player each as far as players that we're happy with. One of my favorite players, I think, in the league right now is Zach Gallen. Right, guy had a 7-2 record with 82 Ks, a 2.72 ERA with a 1.03 WHIP. Doesn't give up a lot of hits, showing a lot of great control. At home, he's currently perfect with 6-0, and he's only allowed an opponent batting average of 158 and 54 Ks at home. And he's also very impressive, 82 to 16 K to walk ratio over 7 2/3 innings. And is the reason why the D-backs right now are in second place with a 33-23 record, Willie.
They're in first place.
Oh, excuse me. First place. I'm sorry.
And the Diamondbacks swept the Colorado Rockies today for the first time since 2002, I think it was
2002.
Yeah. So, and you talk about you talk about a team that has benefited from these rule changes. That team is scary, athletic, and they're very, very good. Marte, he actually hit the hit that he had in the ninth inning today. It would have been a single by most people's estimations, but he took advantage of some bad defense from the Rockies and ended up on second base. And then the next thing you know, the other kid, I can't think of his name, the rookie, the center fielder, he comes up and he hits a walk-off. But so yeah, the Diamondbacks are in first place, Jeff. I just want to make sure you realize that, because everybody out there that's a Diamondbacks fan is watching. You don't want
Diamondbacks have played great.
Yes, they have, and
they have played great baseball.
I am really impressed with that team, and as a matter of fact, I'm always looking for a team to adopt. So they might be my team next to adopt. But my player that I'm really, really happy to see performing as good as he is, or as well as he is. Can we talk about Yandy Diaz from the Tampa Bay Rays?
Yeah, man. Leading the team batting average right now, I believe, isn't he?
Not only that. I mean, they have a Rosarena, of course, and they have a couple other big boppers in there as well. But Yandy Diaz already has, I believe it's 10 home runs, if I'm not mistaken. His season high for throughout his career is only 12.
Yeah, he has 12 home runs right now.
He has 12 now, and I think maybe his 5th, but he's going to shatter that record for himself. And Diaz to me is firmly a top 3 AL MVP candidate, because he is the best player on the best team.
I mean, Brett, they're the best team right now, but those Yankees are still in, like, I think 4, maybe 5 games back. But I'm kidding. No, the Rays.
The Yankees are 34 and 24, correct? Tampa's 40 and 18. So yeah, they're right there.
Rays, hey, you know what? I'm giving all the Rays all the credit they have. I mean, we got to give Wander Franco, who's also become one of my favorite players, because that man had a very slow start and it's just coming around. And Willie, you also said Arena, whatever the heck his name is, that man has 40 RBIs and is an absolute stud. They're very exciting. Hopefully their pitching will get healthy, but we'll talk about them in a little bit later in the show. But go ahead, Brett.
I was going to say about Tampa Bay, I mean, they lead the MLB in stolen bases, I believe. They've got 77 bags stolen. They're also leading the league in home runs. They have 103 already, which is mind-boggling. And also Wander Franco, he's the best prospect I've ever seen and ever, evaluated in my lifetime. And to see him finally bust open and stay healthy consistently has been incredible to watch. And one thing about Wander Franco that, in my opinion, I think he's a Hall of Fame talent. That's how good I think he'll be. He's a 300 hitter with a 319 BABIP, so it's not luck. He's also I think got 8 or 9 home runs right now. He's stolen 15 bases, which has been a shock actually for a lot of people. And he's playing really great defense, and he's leading the American League in wins above replacement right now. He's been something special. But to have Yandy Diaz batting first and then have Wander Franco batting second, Brandon Lau's solid still at batting third, but then you have Rosarena batting fourth, who, I mean, it's looking like they probably won that trade with St. Louis for Liberatore. And then on top of that, another player I want to point out is Josh Lowe and his development as an outfielder with Tampa Bay. He was a first-round pick many years ago out of high school, positionless, and they weren't sure about him. Progressed one level a year through the minors, and now he's a 5-tool talent. So he's definitely.
And your player?
My player?
Yeah.
Well, Willie's going to like this. Maybe not for his team right now, but, he was there before Sean Murphy. I mean, Sean Murphy has been an absolute monster this season. He's in the 99th percentile with exit velocity. His StatCast numbers are through the roof. And I knew he would benefit, coming from Oakland. Obviously, they're not a hitter's ballpark, going to Atlanta. And now he's in a lineup protected by so many bats. He's getting so many great at-bats, and he's hitting the ball with authority. He's having a career year, and he's establishing himself as a top 5 player. I believe.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, all good stuff. All good stuff. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a little bit of pivot because I definitely want to talk about some of these prospects here. But I'm just going to throw out a couple teams here and just kind of get some of your thoughts. And the first one I really want to do right now is talk about these Atlanta Braves, right? The record is not necessarily like eye-popping at 32-23, but they still have a run differential plus 56. But I mean, this is clearly the best team in the National League despite losing two in a row to your woeful A's, Willie.
That's
But
right, baby.
still,
That's right.
hey, hey, I mean, but listen though, you got the front runner and Ronald Acuna. You got a Cy Young Award guy candidate and Spencer Strider. They got the speed, the defense, the power, the bullpen. They have it all to win another championship. I just think they only have to add maybe like a left fielder and like a veteran starter, Willie. But I'm really liking these Atlanta Braves in the long run.
Yeah, and what you can take from the Braves right now, if we want to, is the fact that even with them being with the record that you just quoted, many Braves fans will consider that a win because the Braves have been notorious slow starters up until last year, and even last year to a degree. But the Mets got out so hot last year that they actually had to cool off, and the Braves were just playing steady baseball and was able to catch and then pass them. And you're right, man. They're loaded. They are loaded. I see that Mike Soroka is back from two what was it, Achilles tears?
Achilles.
Yeah. So
yeah.
he's back from that. And I've always said that once they get him back, along with Max Fried, and they can get another nice arm in there, they will be tough to deal with. Spencer Strider, a lot of people picked him to win the Cy Young Award this year, but he just could not face the Phillies because he gets killed by them. So yeah, man, the Braves, I wouldn't be too concerned about losing to the A's 2 out of 3. I mean, it happens. Yeah. That's our World Series, and I appreciate them letting us do that.
No doubt, no doubt. Brett, your thoughts?
I mean, Atlanta has been a consistent juggernaut in the National League for quite some time now, and they've always had that, consistency within their farm system and with their MLB lineup. The one thing that stands out for me with Atlanta, other than the fact that they have Sean Murphy now, Ronald Acuna is now probably the front runner for MVP, but it's their pitching depth. I mean, their pitching depth is so incredible compared to like Cleveland or Tampa Bay. You have Max Fried, obviously, who's a great pitcher. When he got hurt, you had guys like young Bryce Elder stepping up, Jared Schuster. They just called up their top pitching prospect, 20 years old, AJ Smith-Shawver. He zoomed right through the minors, and they think he could possibly be a Strider-like guy. Spencer Strider, he's my pick for Cy Young right now. I mean, he's started, 11 games. He's already struck out 106 batters, I believe. The only thing stopping him from striking out 300 guys is injury. Now, to be able to have the gem like that, plus all their depth, their bullpen's not bad either. But the Braves are just consistent all around, just have the lineup, the pitching depth to survive the whole season. No doubt about it. And
No doubt. And look, it's going to be very, very, very exciting. And because John Scherer, hopefully I said it correctly, said go O's. Yeah, there we go. I need to do better at just pronouncing people's names. I'm terrible. I need to laugh at myself for that one. But can we you got to give love to my hometown team of the Baltimore Orioles, man. A team 35-20 with a plus 32 run differential. This team is real. They're deep. It's centered around Cedric Mullins, although he went on the injury list. I mean, you got Austin Hayes, Gunnar Henderson, Anthony Santander, Ryan Mountcastle, all finally starting to hit. Then you still got Felix Bautista and Yadier Cano in their bullpen, which is one of the best in baseball. I think improving the rotation is going to needs to be a little bit of a priority, Willie. But I do think that this team, when they got that front office, these people are forgetting that these are the individuals that built that built the Houston Astros for who they are. There was a couple people that were in that front office, and when they signed these guys a couple years ago, I said, watch out in a couple years. Watch how this team is going to be for real and provide a lot of. I'm not surprised that they're at how great that they're playing right now, Willie.
Yeah, and I'm not either, because what they did last year after trading their best player to the Astros, to your favorite team, Jeff, they ended up being better. They challenged for one of those playoff spots all the way up until like the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. And I believe that experience of almost getting there has been big for them. They're very talented. They can hit the ball out of the park. I think Cedric Mullins is my guy. Look, with everything that the Orioles used to be, the armpit of the American League, they are now the deodorant roll-on that everybody feels good about.
Facts.
Yeah, and one thing. I'm sorry about that. One thing that you guys both forgot was that the number 1 pick from the 2019 MLB draft, Adley Rutschman.
Mm-hmm.
There's no coincidence that the O's over their past 162 or probably more games since they've called him up, that they're a winning team.
Mm-hmm.
He has definitely been their heartbeat. Coming up, handling this pitching staff that is not necessarily top tier. They're about middle of the pack. They could use like a Shane Bieber at the deadline, which I could see them getting involved. But he's come up and displayed the best strike zone plate discipline. He's walking more than he strikes out. He's hitting for power. He's commanding, the team behind the plate. It's no surprise that the Orioles have gotten better, especially since Mike Elias, like you had mentioned, went over to the Orioles and brought his philosophy over there. Now they're drafting and developing talent very well. Gunnar Henderson's starting to hit a little bit better, and they have tons of top prospects in the minor leagues that are pretty close as well. So I can see this team being super competitive for the rest of the year as well. The only thing that kind of concerns me, like I just mentioned, is the pitching, is mid-tier, but I think they have enough offense to be able to have a strong rest of their season. And yeah, the Orioles are great.
Hey, no doubt. And we're going to do a little bit of a pivot here because like there's kind of like this the one race that I was curious in seeing is in the NL West, specifically with San Diego and all the money that they have spent. And right now they're 7.5 games back, 26-30. And just some of their stats have just been absolutely just they're only batting .222, which is 29th, and runs per game at 4.18 at 23rd. And their on base percentage is 21st, slugging percentage 25th, hits per game 29th. Home runs is still respectable 65. ERA is at 3.88, which is 9th. I'm gonna throw it to you, Brett, real quick, because I know you're a Rockies fan. Like, what is going on in San Diego? Like, when you think about all the money that they have spent, this team could get it together. There's still time, but they're just not playing up to the type of potential that they could based at the top half of their lineup.
Absolutely. The top half of their lineup is loaded with talent. Machado, although he's hurt now, has been underperforming all season. Juan Soto, he's been playing good, but not as great as he was in Washington. The ballpark could be a major factor with that. But they do have some holes in their lineup. The reason why they're hitting at such a low average and getting on base, when you have a guy like Rougned Odor in your lineup, or Austin Nola, or Matt Carpenter, and they're really struggling, it brings the team down. And the problem with the Padres is their pitching is good, but it's not great. They don't necessarily have, the number 1 ace. They do have Darvish, Musgrove, and all that. But they're an example, and AJ Preller's notorious for this ever since, he got over there to San Diego. They're notorious for trading a lot of their young talent to try to win now. And that strategy doesn't necessarily always work in the long term. And now they don't have a whole lot of depth surrounding their lineup, especially when they get hurt. So they could struggle quite a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a run and come back because of the talent that they have. But the early numbers have not been good so far, that's for sure. When you're hitting 222, that's what the A's are hitting. So that's not good.
Heck yeah.
And what and Willie, like we talked about, before the show, before you got on, we talked about the pitching and how there's going to be such a high demand for pitching, but there's going to be a very low supply. And just overall, man, how are you feeling about these San Diego Padres?
Well, I had them in the World Series against the Blue Jays, and I had Soto as my
okay.
NL MVP. I think there's plenty enough time for them to right the ship. I do agree with you. I do agree with you in the fact that Brett, that ballpark, Petco Park, it's not hitter friendly whatsoever. That may have an impact on what's going on with Juan Soto. They're gonna miss Machado for as long as he's gonna be out, and then when he comes back, he's got to get back in the rhythm. We know that Machado is very, very good on the corner with the glove. I think I think they would be okay, but the Diamondbacks are not going anywhere. They're not. The Dodgers are going to still be the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are going to be the big brother for the Padres for as long as, I don't know. And I hate the Dodgers too, by the way. But what they need to do, man, is they need to look, they at one point had the most expensive infield in all of Major League Baseball. And Brett, you're 100% right. That team is very top heavy. Not a lot of depth. You Darvish, you really don't know what you're going to get from him as your number one. Blake Snell, is he still there?
Yeah,
he is there.
So quality starts.
Yeah, he's not nearly the Blake Snell that he was when he was in Tampa. And Musgrove is kind of the same way. You just don't know what you're going to get from that dude.
Yeah, Blake Snell has definitely underperformed. I mean, he had that one great season in Tampa where he got the Cy Young, and then every other season since he's been wildly inconsistent, which has kind of exposed what kind of pitcher he actually is.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
Facts. And just getting to the prospects part is there's this, and Brett, I really want to talk about this one. This prospect, the 16-year-old catcher, Ethan Salas. He's the younger brother of Twins prospect Jose Salas. Signed for a record highest bonus of $5.6 million. He turned 17 this month. He was actually in minor league camp and actually caught a rehab start. Willie, for your boy Joe Musgrove, has really soft hands and agility at the plate already. This guy, they better not trade him. He's as good as advertised so far, but to be 16 years old, to be playing and to be in single A right now is going to be very, very, very exciting. Very, very exciting prospect.
Incredibly impressive. I mean, the last 16-year-old, I believe, to play in single A in the minor leagues was Julio Urias, actually, I believe. And he turned out pretty good. But this kid is a phenom. I mean, he's the top, player in his international class. He was one of the best catching prospects in recent memory. I mean, Jose Salas, his older brother, he was involved in the trade with Pablo Lopez and Luis Arraez. Which has worked out for Minnesota, actually. Miami, not so bad either. But the kid has a feel for the strike zone, shows the ability to hit the ball to all fields. He has good raw power, and the game power will probably progress, obviously, with time. On defense, he shows plus potential, which is really good because he's got soft hands, blocking ability, and receiving skills. To be 16 years old and hitting in single A, and his first two at bats, I believe yesterday he actually got a hit both at bats, which is incredibly impressive.
Let me on the show.
Sorry.
That's all good.
Which has been incredibly impressive. Now, obviously, when it comes to catching prospects or any teenage prospects, there's a high risk and lots of volatility and variance, especially with the demand of the position physically. But teams and the Padres are really confident in this kid, and they're saying he's one of the best prospects since Wander Franco, since they got him from a young age. So it's going to be exciting to see his development. I really hope they don't rush him. I hope that they let him polish up each level. But we'll see. It's definitely exciting for the Padres, he is, eons away from the big leagues, but it gives the fans something to be excited about.
Hey, it's going to be very exciting. But Willie, your thoughts, and then we'll do each one player piece, or talk about a couple other fantasy, or not fantasy prospects, but Willie, your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I mean, he's 16 years old and he's going to be playing ball with and against grown men. I just hope that for his mental and his spirit is strong enough, and that he has the right foundation around him that can help him in terms of being around these grown men. And then, like you said, Brett, hopefully they won't rush him up, which I don't think they will. They know what they have. The last thing you want to do at that particular time or with that age is rush a kid and then break his confidence, and then he never lives up to what everybody expects him to be. So I just hope that the pressure continues to make diamonds as opposed to bursting pipes.
Facts.
Yep.
But hey, but Brett, I know you're definitely excited about getting some prospects. What were maybe one or two prospects that that really kind of stood out that are either getting called up? We're seeing a lot of players getting called up, especially with the Guardians, right? With their injuries. You're looking at the Dodgers with their injuries. A lot of guys are having to move up rather early than you normally anticipated. But who are two guys that stand out in your opinion?
Yeah, and it's ironic that you mentioned the Guardians because I'm actually going to bring up one of their pitching prospects. Now, Cleveland has been just a notorious pitching lab. They constantly churn out good pitchers. They, like I mentioned earlier, they got Logan Allen now, Tanner Bybee, who are some really good prospects. But one guy I really want to talk about who's really rose through the minors really quick and could get the next call to the big leagues is Gavin Williams, who's a right-handed pitcher for their AAA team right now. I believe the Columbus Clippers, if I'm not mistaken. He has just mowed down the competition since he was drafted in the first round out of East Carolina, or I think he's East Carolina. And he's 6'6". He throws about 100 miles an hour, has wicked breaking stuff, and he made he made them look really bad. He also is making AAA pretty quick work of AAA. He's got 11, 12 Ks per nine and walks maybe 3 or 2 per nine. But this is a guy that's going to come into the big leagues and contribute right away when he gets called up. So that's why I'm kind of confident in the Guardians with their possible outlook as well.
And Willie, when I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off, Brett.
Yeah, I was just going to say Gavin Williams, if you're doing fantasy and you need an arm, he's a guy to definitely put on your watch list. That's one of the players.
And Willie, when we think about it, you think about these Guardians. They were the youngest team to make the playoffs last year, and with all these pitchers, they're going to be around for a very, very, very long time. And something special is brewing in Cleveland, Willie.
Yeah, and I like that choice, Brett, because this is something that we need to think about as well. As good as Gavin Williams is or is going to be, and particularly if the Guardians continue to struggle and are out of it and become sellers, you can possibly look at this kid coming in and a Shane Bieber moving out, or even a Sticks McKenzie moving out, Aaron Savali, who has struggled. So yeah, that's the piece of it that I want to touch on, because he's going to push somebody out of Cleveland somewhere else.
Shane Bieber. I think it's definitely going to be Shane Bieber. He's got to pitch a little bit better. He's been kind of hurting my fantasy team a little bit. Shane Bieber, if you're listening, get your ish together, buddy. But before we wrap up, what's one more guy that you're thinking about, and then Willie, we'll give you a player or two that might be standing out for prospect perspective.
In a nutshell, this kid is definitely a top 5 prospect now. He's rose through the minors. He's been pushed pretty quickly. He's pretty young. He's 21 years old. But I wouldn't sleep on the Reds. I mean, the Reds are starting to develop some really good prospects. They've called up Matt McLain and Spencer Steer. They've done really well. But the one kid I want to talk about is Elly De La Cruz.
Yes.
He's top in AAA right now. And I wasn't as sold on him maybe last year or the year before, because he was walking about 5% of the time and striking out about 30. So I was kind of concerned. And then this year coming into AAA, he's now walking at about a 13% rate with a 26% strikeout rate, which means that he's starting to put good at-bats together and starting to mature at the plate. This is a guy that could probably be like a Fernando Tatis Jr. light, kind of, a kid that hits for a lot of power and hits for some average, but is also pretty fast, and he's a good fielder as well. So I expect them to call him up, either from, this next month because he's really raking, or possibly towards September, depending on his development. But Elly De La Cruz, definitely. I mean, his exit velocity is amazing, and he's just trending upwards.
Awesome. Willie, your thoughts, and if there's a prospect that stands out to you, and then we'll conclude.
Not one particular prospect. I just want to give props and respect really to all these young kids that are on the cusp of making their dreams come true. And I just feel like at this current time, with baseball being what it is, the recipe is right for baseball players and prospects to have success a lot quicker than what we're used to seeing from back in the past. I mean, and just to go to somebody that's already in the show, Texas Rangers, their young rookie Young is actually killing it. So what I love, and it kind of reminds me of our thought process when it came to quarterbacks in the NFL. It used to be where you had to sit an NFL quarterback or rookie quarterback for a couple years before they actually had a chance to really do anything. Well, now that's not the case. And I think it's because quarterbacks that are coming out of college in the NFL is starting to tailor offenses more to the college game. And just like now, MLB is doing some of the same things by tailoring some of the rules, even from a pitching standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, all the way to the hitters. So I think it's given an opportunity for players or prospects to become a lot more successful a lot faster.
Hey, facts. And I like the service rule manipulation that times of service manipulation that they got rid of. I don't remember the specifics of it, but do you remember the specifics that they changed in that rule? I don't remember offhand.
So the service time manipulation, I don't think really has changed. You still have the Super 2 deadline. You still have all that stuff where, if you hold back a player, you get an extra year out of them. But one thing they have changed recently, especially when it comes to prospects, is that teams are starting to get incentives from the MLB for promoting their prospects quicker. And if they get, say, I believe it's if your prospect wins Rookie of the Year, you get an additional draft pick, like a competitive ballot.
Awesome. Hey, guys, baseball, all great, phenomenal conversation. Willie, again, thank you for coming on. And Brett, thank you for coming on. I love talking baseball. Let's get back at this in like a week or two, because I definitely want to highlight more baseball, because I think that as the divisional races start to heat up, there's definitely going to be a lot of exciting things. And then I'm excited. I'm excited. It's great. It's a great day to be a baseball fan. But as we like to always do, Brett, did you want to give your Twitter and all your information? And Willie will give you then we'll let you give a shout out to your stuff.
Yeah, and I appreciate, you inviting me onto the show and being able to share some insight. I hope I was able to provide some good knowledge for the listeners and for you guys as well. My Twitter handle, it says in my my picture right there, Coors Field effect, obviously because, Coors Field has that effect on the baseball and the hitters. That's my Twitter account. Go ahead and follow me. I follow back always. Especially sports. I love talking sports, and I look forward to coming onto the show again.
Awesome. Thank you for having on, Willie.
At Shakeback Media Group on Twitter, SHKBKMEDIA BK, or I'm sorry, GRP. Shakeback Media Group on Twitter. I got hashtag Brothers of Baseball show that's dedicated to just baseball, and about 7,000 other shows that I'm just dabbling into. So make sure y'all come holler at your boy.
Fun stuff. Well, gentlemen, appreciate your time. I know that the NBA Finals is on, so I look at it. Looks like it's getting a blowout here. Denver's kind of rolling with it. But hey, to all of our listeners, to all of our fans, thank you for all the love and support. We really appreciate you. We will be back next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, for episode 88 as we march to episode 100. We already got some things getting lined up. We're getting close to the century mark, which I'm really excited about. Stay tuned and be blessed.